Overrated, underrated, grade inflation.
I don't know if there's overused. Grade inflation is overdone. There was this thing called COVID, in March 2020, we all got to know it. The problem is that there was no universal standard. Each district, each county, each state has their own policy on how they wanted to move forward, and some just plowed right forward. Some didn't have kids physically come to school, and they lacked social interaction for 18 or 20 months, which is insane. Grade inflation, back to your question, was really brought to the forefront because when you're a teacher and you're expected to move your class of 30 or 32 or 36 kids to the next grade level, but every kid now has wildly different performance abilities in the subjects they should have mastered by, say, the end of fourth grade or the end of second grade, those kids, they got trucked by COVID, realistically, right? Because you're talking about a 5-year-old, can they do distance learning? That's insane. And then parents had to work. Okay, not gonna get into the whole thing. Long story short, grade inflation. Schools contractually need to move students from one grade to the next. Have you ever heard of 7th and 8th graders and high schoolers getting held back? No, it doesn't happen. Really, the last grade level where kids may get held back in any capacity is at the latest, like 2nd grade. Once they're in the system, the school's job is to get you out of the system. The school's job is to take their funding for every day your kid's butt is sitting in a seat in school. That's why if you have like 10 absences, they get pretty mad at you because they don't get the funding if your kid's not in school that day. They'd rather your kid show up for 5 minutes and sign them out because guess what? They get the funding. Long story short, the school's job is to move your kid along. So they inflate the grades. If your kid has an F, guess what? They have a COVID F. It's a C now. So they're passed along. And our unique view here is if you're that 5th grade teacher and you pass your kid along and you kind of know there's no way this kid's going to thrive in middle school or even survive, it's the middle school's problem now. But guess what? We see that. The parents see that. It's our problem. It's your problem. And so that's the issue, is that the 6th grade teachers are like, what did you give me? How am I supposed to work with some of these kids whose parents were really adamant about staying on top of stuff and getting where they needed to get and having a really good understanding of the basic standards at this point? And then you have some kids that are 3 grade levels behind, but they're in the same classroom. So like, how is that ever supposed to work? Well, the 6th grade teacher has no choice. Their hands are tied. Now your kid's going off to 7th grade. And that kid is basically going to bare bones survive, get passed along because maybe they're a nice kid and they somewhat tried and they got extra credit because they needed to in order to get a passing grade, and your teacher doesn't want to have questions from the administration about why didn't my kid pass to 11th grade? They're gonna pass as long as they semi-show up and they're not completely truant. So grades are inflated. It was hilarious. This is long, but I'm gonna keep going. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. Dude. Yeah. It was hilarious when every single parent we had in 2021 was like, I don't think we need to come in as much. They're doing better. I think that break served them well. Or the things I think I did during COVID and they had to stay home, I think I gave them enough to do that they're actually ahead of the curve now. No, they're not. Everything was just softened. Everything was propped up. It's artificial. Then 2022 and 2023 came along, and guess what? Worst ACT scores in 30 years. Worst standardized test scores in 40 years. Go figure, go figure. The standardized thing that actually measures year over year a population and their understanding, that was really off, but your kid's getting better grades than ever? Bizarre.